of Mission 3 Study Guide, problem number 1. A full bottle of hot sauce contains 60 ounces of hot sauce. Okay, so the whole bottle, right? The full thing, all of it, 60 ounces of hot sauce. Use the double number line diagram to solve and show your answer, or show your work and answer the following questions. All right, the number lines are drawn for you, labeled, right? The second one here is your percentages. Your zeros align, and they've provided you with the 50% mark and the 100% mark and the aligned tick marks. Let's take a look at A. After 1 week of meals, the bottle of hot sauce contains 75% of its original amount. I am hoping that you have immediately said 75%. That's one of my benchmarks. That's the same as 3/4. Okay. How many ounces are in the bottle after 1 week? All right, so we went from the bottle being full, so that's all of the hot sauce being there, to now it only has 75% of the hot sauce, or 3/4 of the hot sauce. How many ounces are in the bottle after 1 week? There are blank ounces of hot sauce in the bottle after 1 week. All right, we have to figure out how many ounces of hot sauce there are after 1 week. Well, what do you think aligns with 100%? We know that a full bottle, so that means the whole thing, had 60 ounces. That means 60 ounces is our 100%. When that bottle contained 100% of its hot sauce, it contained 60 ounces. Now, it wants to know 75%, but 75% is nowhere on my number line. That means I have to figure out where it goes. Okay? We know that 50%, that's equivalent to 1/2. 100%, that would be equivalent to 1. Well, where does 75% go? It goes exactly where 3/4 would go, which is halfway between a half and a whole, or between 50% and 100%. So this is where our 75% goes. 75% is exactly between 50% and 100%. So we put our corresponding tick mark. All right, let's go ahead and put the rest of our spaced tick marks, because we're going to need to have equally spaced tick marks in order to fill in all of these spots here. Let's go ahead and label this tick mark as well. 0 to what to 50? Well, what's halfway between 0 and 50? Well, it is 25%, right? Because this would be like 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1. 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. All right, so I know how my tick marks go here. I got to figure out how my tick marks go here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look. How many times have I jumped from 0 to get to 60? 1, 2, 3, 4. That means I'm going to take 60 and divide it by 4 to figure out what I'm going to start with. Well, 60 divided by 4, that's 15. Okay, you can pop that into your calculator if you need to. The way that I figured that out in my head was I know that half of 60 is 30, and then I would be halving that again in order to put it into 4 parts. Half of 30 is 15. All right, so I start with 15, which means that I am skip counting by 15. 15 plus 15 is 30, plus 15 is 45, and just to make sure that I am doing my math correct, if I was to add 15 again, I would get 60. All right, my tick marks are labeled. Now I can find the aligned value for 75%. When only 75% of the bottle remains, there will be 45 ounces in the bottle. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at B. The grocery store now offers a bottle of hot sauce that contains 175% of the original amount. Remember, the original amount was 60 ounces. How many ounces of hot sauce are in the new bottle? So we're figuring out 175% of 60 ounces. Well, my tick marks here stop at 100%. So that means I'm going to need to keep this going a bit. So if I continue my tick marks, I'm going to run out of room here because my next tick mark, I'm increasing by 25%. 25% plus another 25% is 50%, plus another 25% is 75%, plus another 25% is 100%, plus another 25% is 125%, plus another 25% is 150%. Oh no, my number line has to be extended so that I can put another tick mark that will show me 175%. Now I'll continue my jumps up here. So 15 more than 60 is 75. 15 more than 75 is 90, because I'm adding 5, which takes me to 80, plus 10, which takes me to 90, plus 15 more, 90, plus 10 would be 100, plus 5 more would be 105. That means that my number of ounces in a bottle that contains 175% of that 60 ounces would be 105 ounces of hot sauce in the new bottle. Problem number 2. We have part A and part B. We have our introductory information. All right, Jill is participating in a fitness assessment where she must complete a certain number of sit-ups and pull-ups. All right, this really doesn't give me any information that I'm going to use, does it? I just know that she is going to be doing some amount of sit-ups and some amount of pull-ups. No real numbers that I know that I'll use or how I'll use them yet. All right, so let's go ahead and look at what does A say. She has completed 30 sit-ups. All right, she did that, right? That is done. She did 30 sit-ups, which is 20% of her goal for sit-ups. So she has not done all the sit-ups she wants to do. She's done 20% of her goal. Okay. How many total sit-ups does Jill plan to do? Use the tape diagram to solve. All right, so 100%, we don't know what value. We don't know how many sit-ups that is yet. That's our mystery, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. 100% of her sit-ups is how many sit-ups? Don't know. But I know that she has done 30% of her sit-ups, and that was 20% of her goal. All right, 20%. That's 2 groups of 10%. So I could break this up into tenths and then shade in 2 of them. Or I can think to myself, well, how many 20% are there in a 100%? Well, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. There's 5 groups of 20%. I'm going to break my tape diagram up into 5 as equal as I can get them parts. And I know that this one section is 20%. It's also 30 sit-ups. All right. 20% of her goal is 30 sit-ups. She would have to do 5 times that many sit-ups in order to do 100% of the sit-ups. So in order to figure out how many sit-ups that is, I'm going to do 30 times 5, because I would have to do 30 sit-ups 5 times to go from 20% to 100%. 3 times 5 is 15, and that's 15 tens, so I'm going to put a 0 at the end. Jill plans to do a total of 150 sit-ups. Let's take a look at B. Jill plans on doing a total of 40 pull-ups, but she only completes 60% of her goal. How many pull-ups has Jill, that should say Jill, completed? Oh man, typos. All right, another thing that I noticed, guys, that is a typo on here, I did not change the value that this tape diagram represents. So I want you to go ahead right now, grab your pen, and I want you to change this to 40. That's my bad, okay? That should say 40. So Jill wants to complete 40 total pull-ups. She has completed 60% of her goal. How many pull-ups has Jill completed? All right, we're going to use the tape diagram to figure this out. So 40 pull-ups is 100% of the, or should I say sit-ups, the pull-ups she wants to do. She has completed 60%. How would you break up this tape diagram to show 60%? Well, what could we skip count by to land, to get to a total of 100 and to fall on 60 along the way? We did 20 up here, right? 20, 40, 20, 40, 60. I could show 60% by breaking this also into groups of 20% each. But I want 60%, right? So I'm going to shade enough of my tape diagram here to show 60%. Okay? These three boxes combined now show 60%. 60% for these three boxes. Now what I have to do is take this 40% and divide this equally into my 5 boxes. The way that I'm going to do that is take 40 and divide it by 5. What is 40 divided by 5? Well, you can go ahead and pop that into your calculator, or you can flip this into a related multiplication problem, and you can say 5 times what equals 40. This might help you out, and you might think, oh, I know, 5 times 8 equals 40. That means 40 divided by 5 equals 8. That means that every one of these sections has a value of 8. Now I want to find the value for all 3 of these boxes because I have to figure out the value for 60%, right? So that's going to be 8 plus 8 plus 8, or 8 times, oops, sorry, you can't see that, or 8 times 3, right? And 8 times 3 is 24. That means that Jill plans to do a total nope, not plans to. Let me start over. Jill has completed 24 pull-ups. because it asked me, how many pull-ups has Jill completed? Jill has completed 24 pull-ups. Got to make sure that I'm answering the question that it's asking, right? All right. Number 3. What is 75% of 186? Okay, all it says is to show your work and or explain your reasoning. This is a wonderful time for you to go ahead and use those steps that are on the orange poster on the wall. Okay? You do not have to draw a tape diagram or a double number line diagram. You can if you want to, but you do not have to. All right, so what is 75% of 186? Now, if we follow the steps on the wall, what we do is we take that percentage, we turn it into a fraction, and we are multiplying it by our total. Remember, our 186, that's our total. And we're figuring out 75% of that total. Okay? So the next thing that you do is you go ahead and you multiply 75 by 186. So you can pop that right into your calculator if you want to. So I'm going to put in 75 times 186, and I get 13,950, and that is still over 100. All right, now what do? Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cancel out any of the zeros that I can. Now, I can only cancel out one of these zeros. And in class, we talked about what do you do if you cannot get your answer down to a value of 1 here. That means that you're going to have to move the decimal point over one place in order to figure out what your value is. So that means that your answer is going to be 139.5 over 1. That means that your answer is 139.5 is 75% of 186. All right, number 4. We have 18 is 20% of what number? All right, the way that we're going to solve this one, you have your steps on the wall. It's on the yellow poster, okay? So when we think of 18 is 20% of what number, what I want you to think of is over of equals percent over 100. Here's my is, 18 over of what number? That's our question. So that means that that is an unknown, equal to your percent, which is 20. I don't want to rewrite that word percent. 20 over 100. Okay, because there's my percent, 20% over 100. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply. That means I'm going to be multiplying 18 times 100, and I'm going to be multiplying I don't know what times 20. The way that I rewrite that is I don't know what times 20 over 18 times 100. Now, I actually have something I can solve here. I can't solve I don't know what times 20, because that's an I don't know what. Now, as you get older, you're not going to be writing this as a question mark. You're going to be using a variable. But we're not to that stage yet, so we're going to use the question mark because you don't know what, right? Something times 20. 18 times 100. I can solve 18 times 100. That's going to give me 1,800. And I still have, I don't know what, and I really should be using that dot like we talked about in class, right? I don't know what times 20. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the division that we can do. And we're going to go ahead and take that 1,800 and we're going to divide it by our 20, and that's going to equal our I don't know what. So what is 1,800 divided by 20? If you pop that in your calculator, you could either do your long division, or you can go ahead and pop 1,800 divided by 20, and that equals 90. So that means that 90 equals your I don't know what. So 90 is your answer. Now how does that relate to 18 is 20% of what number? 90. Well, actually let's say 18 is 20% of 90. There's your answer. 18 is 20% of 90. All right, number 5 is made up of an A, a B, and a C. Our information that we're given. Danny, Claire, and China have resolved to drink more water each day. The recommended amount of water per day is 64 ounces. All right, so 64 ounces per day of water is what just scientists, dietitians, nutritionists, whatever. It's what the people who tell us how much water we should drink, that's what they say we should drink. All right, let's take a look at A. Danny has 20% of the recommended amount of water left to drink before bed. How many ounces does he need to drink to reach his goal? Show your work and or explain your answer. All right, so let's think about what information we know so that we can figure out which of our equations we're going to use to solve this. I know the total, 64 ounces, and I know that I'm finding a 20% of that total. So my question is, what is 20% of 64? All right, which one of our steps are we going to follow for that? You're going to use your orange poster for this, right? Because your orange poster, your example is what is 40% of 60. This is what is 20% of 64. So you're going to use your orange poster, which means you're going to take your, percentage over 100 times your total, which means you're going to, my hand and brain do not want to communicate on what I'm writing. 20 times 64 over 100. If I multiply 20 times 64, I get 1,280. 1,280 over 100. I am able to cancel out one of my zeros from each number. I'm left with a 10 down below. That means I'm going to have to move my decimal point over 1 on both of these numbers in order to get that denominator of 1. So 12.8. How many ounces of water does Danny need to drink before bed? He needs to drink 12.8 ounces of water to reach his goal. All right, B. At breakfast, Claire drinks 8 ounces of water. What percentage of the daily amount of water does Claire drink at breakfast? All right, so what we don't know is what percentage of the daily amount. So what percentage of 64 is the amount she drank is 8 ounces. Because what I'm asking is what percentage of the part is the whole. That's going to be your light blue poster. And you're going to use your equation of, we know that she drank 8 out of 64, like our original problem said. So that's going to be 8 over 64 times 100. Now we're going to do 8 times 100 over 64. 8 times 100 is 800 over 64. And then I do my last step, which is divide, because every fraction is an unsolved division problem. 800 divided by 64. Go ahead and grab your calculator. 800 divided by 64 gives us 12.5. So Claire has drank 12.5 or 12.5% of her daily amount of water at breakfast. All right, and last one, C. China decided to drink more than the recommended amount of water. By dinner time, she had already drunk 64 ounces of water, which is 75% of her new goal for the day. How many ounces of water does China want to drink to reach her new goal? We now know that 64 is 75% of what amount, right? So 64 is 75% of what value? So that would be your yellow poster are going to show you the steps for that, right? When you have an amount and you want to figure out, and that is a percentage of a whole, and you want to figure out what the whole is. What we don't know is the new whole, 100%, because she has a different 100% than the other two people do. So I'm going to follow my steps on my yellow poster for this one. So I'm going to look at the information that I have. 64 is 75% of what number? My is over my of equals my percent over my 100. Now I'm going to replace that information. 64 is, so I'm going to do 64 of what? I don't know. Equals the percent, 75 over 100. And now we cross multiply. So we say, I don't know what, times 75 over 64 times 100. Now I have something to actually do. 64 times 100. I've still got my I don't know what, I don't know what times 75, but I can solve 64 times 100, which is going to be 6,400. Now I'm going to take my 6,400 and divide it by my 75. And that's going to equal my I don't know what. So I go ahead and pop that into my calculator. 6,400 divided by 75 equals, oh, I've got a repeating 3. That is going to equal 85.33, right? Because we cut it off after 2. So her new goal is to drink 85.33 ounces of water each day.